down. We are live. Say hello to the world, Angela.
Hello, world.
Hello, world. We've got nobody to talk to except for ourselves at the moment.
That's how you're going to start your musical?
Hello, world.
Dale Wheatley, the musical.
Dale Wheatley is now, he's a programmer. About to go live.
What do you mean you're a programmer?
You know, because they say hello, world.
Who does?
Guilty Angels just arrived. Hello, Guilty Angel. Guilty Angel. They, the programmers, when you do your first website, it's always like, hello, world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what when you're learning programming, that's how it rolls. Erica's arrived. Hello, everybody. Hello. I didn't get a lot of cutting done, but I did manage to get that big rant we had, or that I had posted.
That you had.
Yeah, I did get that rant up because, man, I'm not happy with those dudes, and I'm still not happy with those dudes. Oh my God, Squid Game season 3 premieres tonight. Oh, let's just get right to my first bit of news then. So the creator, listen to this nonsense. The creator of Squid Games 3, or Squid Games, I'm sorry. Let me just start over. A whole face broke on that. The creator of Squid Games 3.
It's hard.
The creator of Squid Games 3. No, the creator of Squid Games.
Squid Game.
Squid Game?
Yes.
Okay,
and
creator.
It's season 3?
Okay, so
is it a different creator than the first 2 seasons?
No, the creator of Squid Game.
Okay.
Has said that he has lost 10 teeth over the stress of making Squid Game. And I think he has that confused with COVID-19.
Yeah, long COVID decimates your capillaries, and a lot of people are having dental problems and losing
Tooth
teeth
loss.
And receding gums and stuff.
Yes.
And he thinks it's because of the stress. I've heard this too, where people are like, I'm so stressed out. All of a sudden, I'm losing all my hair. I'm usually stressed out. I've been stressed out for a decade, but I never lost my hair. But now I'm losing my hair, and I'm like, okay, well, either you've developed a different autoimmune disorder, or it's COVID-19, because that's what it does. Long COVID.
So, tooth loss is a long COVID symptom specifically, and I think this guy has that confused with stress.
So I'm sorry. He thinks that stress made him lose his teeth?
Yes.
Is that a thing that happens from stress?
I've never heard of it.
No, me neither.
Unless you're punching yourself in the face.
That is a super fucking serious amount of stress. I feel like a lot of other stuff would happen to you before you lost your teeth, right?
I would think. I would guess. I would hope.
It's so weird that somebody's like, I'm literally losing teeth, and they're like, I guess I'm stressed. But, maybe he went to a doctor, and that's what they've been telling people. With chronic fatigue syndrome and stuff, they're like, well, you're probably just anxious, or you're probably just really stressed out, burnt out. It's a mental health thing, because they don't bother to do the work to figure out how it's a physical issue. Man, that sucks.
Pretty crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Well, I'm glad that he's hopefully got enough wealth to take care of that problem, so he doesn't have to be toothless.
10 teeth.
What?
10. He said he has lost 10 teeth. Yeah. We're not talking like, oh, my arm gets here today. My new mic arm. Oh, I can't wait. It's been such a pain in the ass. But yeah, this is crazy, right? Let me go to the actual article.
Okay. That's messed up.
Well, that's why I'm talking about long COVID. I'm not talking about him losing a couple of teeth.
10.
10 teeth. And in long COVID, people who've suffered from long COVID have lost, all of their teeth. It doesn't just, it's not just like a couple of teeth wiggle out of your mouth. It's devastating to the whole rack. First comment was next level. Oh, that's next level alarming. It's just amazing. It's like people who think that flu in June is normal.
Oh yeah, they're like, sorry, I got the flu. No, you don't. It's the summertime. You don't have the flu in the summertime. Nobody has ever had the flu in the summertime in the history of summertimes.
So apparently he attributes some of this loss of teeth to, or the cause of it is because he's grinding his teeth. But that's not how it works either. I mean, when you grind your teeth, you'll break them. You'll file them down.
Oh, so maybe that's
you won't
the context.
grind them until they fall out of your mouth. That's not how grinding works. It breaks down the enamel of your teeth. I don't believe you can grind your teeth out of your mouth. I don't believe that's...
Maybe
I am a grinder. I wake up with fatigue
You're
jaw
a what?
fatigue.
You're a what?
Grinder.
It's a song.
It's a Judas Priest song
That's right.
from the 80s. What's up, TikTok? Oh, it's good to be back. I get to say what's up, TikTok, and I just love saying what's up to TikTok, you know. And we got some folks over on YouTube. I had a really fun night last night. I didn't get to cut much of it today, but I had a really fun night last night with you guys. It's so funny though, because like sometimes like we'll do these things and I'll be like, yeah, we had a really good night. This was a good night, and then I'll go watch it back and I'll be like, no, you know.
Yeah.
I'll like totally disagree with myself. That happened the other night too. I was like looking at, I think it was episode 33 or episode 20, whatever, whichever number. It's amazing when you do these things every day how quickly they add up. But anyway, I thought it was like a great night, and then I watched it and I was like, there's like only 2 cuts out of the whole 2 hours, you know.
Oh, was that last night?
No, last night is booming. It's ripe. It's thick.
Literally booming, because we're shouting so much.
I definitely
you peaked
clipped
your audio.
Yep. I don't mind clipping when I'm angry. Hey, listen, man, I am legitimately angry with these people, and I think I have every right to be. That people think people just go about ruining people's lives, and they just do it with like pouring condiments on a fucking hot dog. They're just like, yeah, Blake Lively is the worst person that ever lived. She's a destroyer of humanity. And they've never met this person. They know nothing about this person. And yet they're fully comfortable. And this has been, the bane of my existence, as I've said multiple times. But it's been the bane of my existence because I've had nothing but people just judge me, just ruin me, just go along for the ride because it's a condiment on a hot dog to them, not somebody else's life, not somebody else's reputation, not somebody else's friendships, not their family, not their stress that's going over to the family. They just thoughtlessly go about it. And when you look at somebody like Andy Signor, or you look at any of these influencers who are doing it for nothing other than either money or revenge over what, I don't know. But what else would you do that for clicks? You're going to destroy people's lives so that you can get views and subscribers. I did notice that his subscribers have jumped, so I guess he can sleep well at night with that. Andy Signor's.
I mean, that's got to be why. What else would the motivation be?
Well, I think it's. I think they're.
He's
I
not
think
personally involved with any of these people.
I think it's entirely possible that they're paid shills. We'll see. But.
I just opened TikTok to navigate to your live.
Can you get off the Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
TikTok, I'm going off the Wi-Fi. There's going to be a little bit of a burp. Little bit of a burp, and then we'll be okay, guys. Sorry if you guys are experiencing anything. Thank you for the likes over on YouTube. I really appreciate it. I got to do better at asking for them, just because, we want to grow the channel, obviously.
So I just opened up TikTok.
Yeah.
To navigate to your live.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And MJ, the lawyer, posted, Justin Baldoni's lawyers said they'd file an amended complaint with, in quotes, new evidence by June 23rd.
And they didn't.
That deadline? Well, it just came and went. No filing, no new allegations, just vibes.
Just vibes.
Meanwhile, Blake Lively's team is sitting on a dismissal and watching the clock run out. Timing isn't just strategy in federal court, it's survival. This deadline was missed. What's your theory? Why didn't they file?
Exactly. Well, I've got my theory. I'm gonna restate it. Thanks to you reading that. My theory is that you know what? At this point, I don't actually have a theory, because he came out and said that. What was that? Was that a week ago? Was that 10 days ago?
No, it was after the initial dismissal, so I think he had 2 weeks to refile.
2 weeks.
So it was 2 weeks ago, I think.
So he had 2 weeks.
You're talking about Brian Friedman?
Correct.
Yeah.
I do have to do a little better at identifying people. Thank you for pointing that out. So Brian Friedman...
We're just swimming in pronouns, man. Sometimes we clarify them, sometimes we don't. It's just vibes.
Brian Friedman... He's a schmuckalovovitz. Brian Friedman, he is, I don't understand why he didn't file. I don't understand why I think the
like
only
with a bunch
reason,
of 100 more pages of bullshit, because that's what he's really good at doing.
Well, no,
why didn't he just do that?
What was crazy about it, just to put everybody down memory lane on this, is that Brian Friedman said in his interview in TMZ, he said that the judge had given them a roadmap. So Judge Lyman gave him the roadmap and said,
Yes.
here's how I'm going to let this in. All you got to do is fill in these blanks. You talked about contracts. That was one of the things. But I'm sure there was like multiple things that they needed to provide to the judge.
I think that's all it was. I think that Judge Lyman, I really should have read, it was like a 130-page ruling or something. No, it wasn't that long. I'm mistaking. Okay, whatever. It was a long ruling. And I should have read the whole thing because it was very clear. But he was saying, you have leave to refile these claims, only those very few claims, if you also include the contracts. And I think that that's entirely the reason why he didn't refile. That they went through the contracts and there was no way that they could spin it in order to appease the court and like show anything that supported their claims. I think the contracts are probably
there's a bunch of reasons why that can't be it, but okay, I'm sure that I don't think it's.
Tell me why.
Well, because the contracts aren't really gonna give the judge an understanding of whether or not there's validity here, because the question is whether or not they did something to cause a breach of contract.
Right.
Well, just by looking at the contract, you'd have to then, it has to be, you would have to include what the breach is, specifically what the breaches are or were, and so on and so forth. So you wouldn't just offer the contract.
I know, but if you had a contract that said, Blake Lively promises to show up on set and do her work and get paid this much amount and get this credit.
You know why you can't find something reasonable to say? It's the same reason Brian Friedman couldn't file an amendment, because there's nothing there.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is like maybe he can't determine how that contract that was very plain was ever breached, because she did do everything that she was brought on to do. She did more than she was brought on to do without compensation. She satisfied her contract.
Right. Chase is saying, and the contracts probably would be bad for Baldoni, but the contracts are probably going to make it in anyway, because the contracts are relevant to Blake Lively's, case, I would imagine. And part of her case is that she's saying that they were doing these defamatory things, and one of those defamatory things, one of the lies that they set out to tell was that she stole the movie from them, the men who owned it. And we know that to not be true. Everybody knows that to be true, not to be true. And so that's why I think the contracts will be relevant, because they're going to show who had ownership of the movie. They're also going to show what Blake Lively was hired to be and do, and should be fairly clear in terms of, that language. So I would imagine that the contracts are going to make it in regardless. So I think that what the judge was really ultimately looking for was what the breach of contracts were. And obviously you're going to include the contracts in that, but you're not going to just like, here's the contract and then let the judge read a contract and decide whether or not there's a breach.
I just said that he had submitted his first complaint without the contract. I mean, I thought that it was in exhibits that we weren't seeing, but that it had been filed. And if you don't have like Pacer or whatever subscription, you can't access all that stuff.
Right.
Or maybe it was sealed, whatever. But apparently not, because the judge was like, you have to submit those contracts that you're making these claims about. I need to see whether the claims are supported by the contracts. And they didn't. So I think that must be the difference maker. That the reason why they didn't submit an amendment is because they had to give more evidence. And they didn't like that the evidence didn't support their claim. I mean, it didn't stop them before. They made a claim that she held the trailer hostage and then showed a email between these people, or messages between all the executives and producers saying the exact opposite. So his evidence has never supported his claims.
Yeah, but that's not evidence. That's when you're doing filings. He did that shit when he made his website and when he did his filings, which are his filing for a lawsuit. When you file for a lawsuit, it's a totally different set of rules than when you're actually showing up for a demurrer or a similar thing as a demurrer. And a demurrer, So a demurrer hearing would be like whether or not the case has merit, and if not, it gets demurred, and if it doesn't, then
it gets demurred.
And if it doesn't get demurred, then they move on. We had a demurrer hearing in Don's Plum, of course, right? So you show the evidence, and they decide whether there's sufficient evidence to move forward or not. And Now, when you put that evidence forward, it's completely different than when you're writing your complaint. When you're writing your complaint, you can say almost anything. You can even say things that aren't necessarily supported by any evidence whatsoever. So you can be hyperbolic, but you can also whatever, you can project, you can guess, you can estimate things. The evidence will show is kind of some of the language that precedes, vague understandings of what they think they might find during the litigation. So when you write a complaint, it's not the same. There's nothing they have to worry about in terms of like substantiating that proof. It's when they get to these types of hearings, the hearings where the judges are going to be asking for proof, for actual proof. And if you can't provide that, that's when you get demurred. That's when you get kicked out of the court. And that's exactly what happened to Justin Baldoni. And obviously it's done differently because in this case it's done in a motion to dismiss, but it's ultimately the same thing. The judge demurred the case based on the lack of evidence, because once again, and this is why I think every single Justin Baldoni supporter should be fucking embarrassed this morning, this day, and practically forevermore, because it's shameful. But the evidence proves beyond doubt that I forgot what I was going to say actually.
On TikTok, KMCD user, a bunch of scramble letters, numbers.
Yeah.
Blake didn't sign her contract. I'm assuming it was an implied contract.
Well, she didn't need to sign the contract. The thing about, signing the contract is a formality. It's not when you engage in the contract, then you're engaged in the contract. That means you're agreeing to the terms. In other words, if she engaged in a contract and then tried to change the fundamental terms of the contract later, she would be very unsuccessful doing that legally, because there would be a meeting of minds if she was presented with a contract, which it clearly was, and then began working.
I also just think it's really strange that anybody believes that because she didn't sign a contract that there wasn't a contract everybody was abiding by. Like she's represented at a major Hollywood agency. These people are negotiating terms all the time. Like there's no way that she started to work on a Sony Wayfarer production without a contract in place.
Let me tell you something, because I know this. Contracts, the signing of contracts, this is the same, this is tantamount, this is the exact same thing as them talking about the fucking wardrobe. This is the exact same thing as them talking about all the nonsense that doesn't matter. Actors are constantly working without actual signed contracts. The deals, however, are put in place. They are negotiated. Sometimes they begin actually shooting before the contracts are even properly written. A good example of that is, well, it's not a great example because in our settlement we signed a preliminary deal, but for the purposes of not, because we were in a litigation at that point, if you're not litigious, you're going to just sign the contract and you're going to engage in the contract. You're going to engage in the act of providing whatever service you've agreed to provide.
You help me understand this too because you have so much experience with filmmaking.
It happens all the time, and I just want to emphasize that this is not new. This is not unusual. I've talked to several executives at the studio level about it specifically. As a matter of fact, when it came to
because contract claims were central to the argument that when Leo and Toby countersued you, they were making all these contract claims.
That's right. They were pretending as if they didn't have a deal with us when there wasn't a signed agreement, despite the fact that they appeared in the movie. And the appearance is clearly an engagement. And an engagement has to be proceeding a meeting of the minds of some idea.
And It Ends With Us is a much, much bigger production than Don's Plum was. So there's just no way that any of this business would have gone forward if they didn't have something that meant as much as a contract to them.
Absolutely not.
So you explained this to me. I thought it was really useful, and I think it's one of the reasons why Baldoni got so much leverage is because people just don't understand how filmmaking works. Like I didn't when I asked you about it, but often it's the distributor that is concerned about the contracts because they have to package a film with a clean book, right? Mm-hmm. Like they have to. They're packaging up a film for sale, and whoever's going to buy it and distribute it around the world needs to know that there's not going to be any outstanding conflicts.
Right.
So they always have to have the book clean and all the contracts and all the signatures and everything is squared away.
That's right.
But that's at the distribution level. I mean, this distribution phase that they usually fret about that the most.
Right.
Okay. And so it's interesting that in Justin Baldoni's own evidence, he talks about how he shows how Sony was trying to get Jamie Heath to postpone the contract signing.
Right.
Sony is the distributor. Sony is the one who would be concerned about the contract signatures. And even they are like, Jamie Heath, I don't know why you're trying to make this into some ultimatum for Blake Lively, but why don't you table it for a little while we negotiate this other stuff and we'll deal with it later. Like, what's your problem?
And I want to stress the importance of something here. I brought it up before. I'm going to bring it up again just in case anybody misses out on this important fact. You know, they weren't, Sony, so lenient on not having a signed agreement when they learned that Ryan Reynolds had penned or co-written the rewrite on the rooftop scene, because that means that there's a potential for copyright issues. And that changes everything for them. That changes the game entirely. And so what do? They present an agreement immediately to have Ryan Reynolds sign off on that so that they don't have any potential liability there. So if Sony can recognize a potential liability there and not recognize potential liability in an unsigned contract from Blake Lively, then the standard has kind of been met there. You know, because we have in the same production, we have the very same legal department taking swift and important action at securing the rights and future of the project when it comes to the signing of Ryan Reynolds and any potential copyright he might have.
That's such a good point. But I also think that one piece of evidence where they do a screenshot of the text messages between the Sony executives and Jamie Heath, where they're trying to get him to shut up about the contract signature because they're trying to negotiate with Blake Lively about getting the song and the trailer completed.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
I thought that was so informative, because why does Jamie Heath care about the contract?
Right.
Okay? My suspicion is that he cares about it because at that moment in this conversation where he's really trying to leverage the contract signature and really trying to put an ultimatum on Blake Lively, she is currently in that moment earning a producer's credit.
Yes.
She is attaching Taylor Swift's song. She is approving assets like the trailer and the trailer cut for Sony with Sony.
And the poster.
She's working with the Sony studios and distributors at that point. And she's also, I think at that point, she wants some more days in the editing room to work on the studio's cut.
Yes.
So she's actively being a producer. And I think Jamie Heath is sweating about how she's currently earning a producer's credit he doesn't want to give her for some fucking reason.
I believe that you are 100% right. It's something I said a long time ago as well, and that is that Jamie Heath, in that moment when he was trying to leverage that contract against the actual work that Blake Lively was performing, including attaching the biggest pop artist ever in history,
earning her producer credit.
Earning a producer credit, clearly, he wanted to get her signature on paper, because with that signature on paper, he could simply just say, I'm going to defer to the contract for your credit.
Which is executive producer and lead actor.
Now, I want to say, yes, and I want to say that that's 100%, like, it wouldn't have mattered whether or not she signed it anyway. He could have done the same thing, because she had already engaged in the contract, and therefore she agreed to be an executive producer. And she knew that because she was asking for not only a producing credit on the movie, but also for Jamie Heath and whomever else may be, whoever else would be in charge of it, to sign off on her PGA letters, right? So anyway, yeah, I mean,
it is interesting too, because Jamie Heath is trying to act nice through text messages with Blake Lively, where he's like trying to get her on the phone to talk about this producer's credit. Yeah. She's trying to get him to write a letter of recommendation to the PGA. Okay. Yeah. Which is like, I don't know if people understand this, but the PGA is like their main focus for their members is they're really always promoting mentorship and protection.
Well, it's not their main focus. It's a big part of being a part of the PGA is that you have to give. Being a big part of the PGA is to give back to the community. And that means that you mentor young producers.
Yeah, mentorship is all over their website.
It is.
So he had the chance to mentor a new producer like he's supposed to as a producer. And then, but instead he was like, you know what? I don't want to write this letter of recommendation for you, even though you have worked so hard to improve our film and bring a bunch of assets that we never would have been able to get otherwise. It's just so insane to me that he's like gatekeeping, you know, like something that isn't even his to gatekeep. And so at that point, when he's trying to reach out to her and get her on the phone, that's the first time you see Blake Lively be like, I am not going to have a phone call with you. We're going to do all of this in writing. And from then on, Sony is like mediating communications between Jamie Heath and Blake Lively.
Yeah.
Because he's clearly trying to clip her wings. And she's like, I'm enriching you, you asshole.
Well, look, I mean, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'll say it a fucking 100 times. I'll say it all the way through March in the trial. Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath were co-owners of Wayfarer Studios, owned by the guy behind Man Enough Podcast. They had the Man Enough Podcast as a part of their production company. They were all about not only, blasting and obliterating male, toxic masculinity or whatever. They were about emboldening women. They were about, equaling the playing field for women. And the very first opportunity that they had to do it, the very first opportunity that was presented to them, where they not only had an opportunity to elevate a woman in a role, but their own. Like this person was somebody that they hired. It would have been nothing but a benefit not only to their movie, but to their brand. It would have been a giant benefit to their brand. And that's why you have to ask why. And the question or the answer comes back to me fully. Certainly it's only an opinion, but the answer that comes back to me is misogyny. The answer that comes back to me is that they wanted to keep that woman down. They didn't like her, or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah, my suspicion is that she wasn't willing to hang like a true bro. Right? When she was like, hey, that's sexual harassment, they were like, oh, okay, you're not one of the bros. Like, we're not gonna.
But the problem is,
we're not gonna have a fun time with this one. She's not cool. You know what I mean?
I'm backing all the way up though. They had the opportunity when Blake first asked for the producing credit. They already knew that Blake had this amazing connection to Hollywood. They knew how old she's practical royalty in the town at this point, right? She's certainly extremely high. She's on everybody's A-list. At that point, she was on literally every studio's A-list. So she's just one of the biggest shots ever. She wants to come aboard as a producer, and the Man Enough fucking podcast wouldn't elevate her, wouldn't give her that opportunity. They held her back. And not only did they hold her back, but they asked Sony to participate in that. And Sony agreed, by the way. This is the part that I wonder if people remember. But, Sony actually was on Wayfarer's side at the beginning of all of this.
No, I know that you could see in their text messages all throughout the evidence on Justin Baldoni's like a timeline document. You can see Sony executives getting more increasingly fucking frustrated with Jamie Heath. Because they're like, oftentimes they're like asking him really simple questions, and he is just like, I don't know, like, can you figure it out?
But before all that happened, Sony was all about fucking Wayfarer. They were all about,
I know,
they were all about their partnership with Wayfarer. They're all about Wayfarer driving the ship. They were all about it.
Here's the thing that just perplexes me so much is like these guys they wanted so badly to have a shot at playing like with the big boys, right? Like, I hate that saying, but Sony is such a big deal to work with. They like really elevated their status with that. But how come they're not so eager to like, I feel like if Sony executives were contacting me and I was a producer on a film that got the chance to work with Sony executives and they asked me for anything, I would be like, yes, sir.
Well, let me explain why.
I would be like, how high?
Let me explain why. Because in Hollywood, here's what happens. Like in Hollywood, first of all, it depends on, like, it doesn't matter which sort of category you're in, whether you're like on the executive side of things, you're on the writing side of things and sort of behind the camera creative, or whether you're an actor. If you're suddenly emboldened by anything, either Academy Awards or just getting a lot of attention, then doors fly open for you, and there's a reverence that comes with it, that everyone pays you the minute you walk into a room. And it's superficial, and if you're new to Hollywood, you won't know it. You'll actually think that they're going to put you on this pedestal. Well, Wayfarer had a billionaire in their back pocket. If you actually have a bona fide billionaire in your back pocket and you're in Hollywood, literally the studio is going to make you feel like you're bigger than them. Because they want that $1 billion. They want access to that money. The studios want your money. And so when they're sitting there, and that was the deal they had with Wayfarer. Wayfarer was the production company on record. They were the financier. And so the way that Sony, so these places, when you're a billionaire, they'll roll out the red carpet, but it's all superficial. It's Sony who has the power, but they're going to make you feel like you have the power. Now, if you're an immature person, if you're an immature, executive, you might take what they're giving you, the reverence, to heart. You might start to think yourself bigger than the studios. You start getting too big for your britches, is the old saying.
I didn't see any of that in those messages, though, and I don't think that there's any reason to think you're wrong. But what I'm saying
it's
is
all
that, like,
over it.
In those where the executives are like, "Hey, Jamie Heath, can you answer a question about your, we're not on the production, but you are, like, answer a question." And he was just like, "Oh, I don't know." And then, like, that was the end of the conversation. They had to keep following up with him.
I mean, it's all over it. So the Jamie Heath showed nothing but contempt toward the Sony executive when they were talking.
See what I mean? Isn't it weird? Like,
No, it's
why
not
was he
weird.
acting
I'm telling you, it's emboldened by the fact that he had this billionaire in his corner, and so he thought that his junk was bigger than their junk.
It's just
bottom line.
I don't understand. He must have known he was small. Like, okay, you've got financing, but you're a small production
He
company.
didn't. I'm telling you,
What a
he
weirdo.
didn't. And then he found out in a big hurry. And it's not so much that he didn't think he was small. He just thought he was probably at everybody's level. He had a seat at the table. That's what I'm trying to explain.
Okay.
In Hollywood, they give you a seat at the table.
I hear you, bro.
Okay.
I'm just trying to point out one specific conversation.
Yeah.
You don't have to get defensive about it. Delicate said Jamie is the worst of them. He was the one that gave the green light for Melissa Nathan. And he's doing Justin a disservice if you want to give him sympathy to Justin Baldoni.
Well, I don't think Justin Baldoni gets any sympathy because Justin Baldoni had the opportunity to control everything at all times, and he put himself in the situation that he was in. He put himself at the helm of everything. These guys were supposed to be emboldening women. They were supposed to be elevating women, and then they took on a project that was woman-driven. It was a woman-driven project. It was written by Colleen Hoover. It was beloved by women around the world, 100 million or whatever it is, some stupid number of sales in this book, just like ridiculous numbers, and maybe not 100 million, but just absurd numbers. And he chose to direct it, and like I think a lot of people are like, they're okay with that,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
don't
still
see a
not
problem.
congruent with the brand. It's still not congruent with the brand.
Right.
He had a totally different opportunity to elevate everybody around him. And look, all I'm saying is, he chose to direct the movie. He chose to produce the movie. He chose to be everything all at once. And then all of a sudden, and he chose to obviously be the lead in the movie. And then all of a sudden, now we hear him talking on the red carpet or in interviews about how Blake Lively saved his ass because he was in over his fucking head. So in a situation where he was in over his head and that he was apparently aware of it enough to talk about it in 100 different fucking interviews, he was not aware of it when he was making the movie, when he was rehearsing the movie. He didn't at all see the potential of Blake Lively, who was sitting there, whom he said directed him while he was too deep into the character of Riley, or Ryle, I should say.
It's Ryle.
Ryle. The growling Ryle, right? I mean, it really gets beyond fucking ridiculous when you start putting it all together.
Okay, but here's the thing.
Justin Baldoni could have elevated her in that moment, right there. He could have promoted her during the shoot. Happens all the time in film. But instead, he didn't not only not promote her, they tried to keep her down while she kept contributing.
So Delicate was saying Jamie Heath was the one that gave the green light from Melissa Nathan, and he's doing Justin a disservice. I don't know what's going to come of it, but now that I don't know that it's part of Blake Lively's lawsuit. But don't you remember that there was some evidence, some suggestion. I can't remember where it was from. Maybe like Jones Works had produced some of this, whatever. It was Jamie Heath had been working with Melissa Nathan,
Right.
to try and convince Justin Baldoni, who was not on board with hiring her,
Yeah.
that they needed her. And so what they decided to do, what Jennifer Abel decided to do with Jamie Heath, was put out just a small bit of negative press about Justin to scare him. And convince him, you need crisis PR. Obviously,
Yeah.
you need to hire Melissa.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same reason why she told him to get a lawyer up instead of sign the agreement.
Yeah, because she's like, that makes so much more, because that makes so much more money for her.
Shopaholic is laughing at me and saying that I don't know what I'm talking about. He says it was Colleen who said that Justin should play the role of Ryle. Who the fuck said anything about Justin not playing the role of Ryle? We know that's going to be played. I'm talking about whether or not when Justin realized that he was in over his head by playing the role of Ryle and directing the movie, that he didn't just hand the movie off when he had the opportunity to do it. What is the rhetoric on the carpet when he's sitting there talking about how Blake Lively was this great contributor to him and bailed him out of all the problems that he was creating as a director because he was too wrapped up in his role of Ryle. Where was all of that on the set prior to these red carpets? Where
I
was
want to
that?
point out something. Shopaholic, who's in our comment section here,
Yeah.
is bringing up a really great point.
Okay. Yeah.
Says, there is a whole interview of Blake out there where she talks about how she likes to rug pull. I love that you brought this up because this is very...
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
I'm talking about the very clear evidence that these people were tricked.
I'm sorry. I want you to start over and just tell me what he said because I didn't hear.
Okay, listen. I hope you're listening, Shopaholic. There is a whole interview of Blake out there where she talks about how she likes to rug pull, and that is a perfect example of how you guys have been...
Rug pull. Oh.
Yeah, how you guys have been tricked. Okay?
Yeah.
So that interview that you're talking about, there is a whole interview of Blake out there. That is the Forbes Women's Summit. That was in...
I'm going to fucking cue it up.
That was in 2020. What everybody shared that she was talking about was clipped from the middle of one of her answers to an interview question. It's such a great example of how you guys have been tricked by these publicists.
It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing. It's literally like I said.
She starts the answer by saying, when I was younger, I used to do this. Okay. And then there's the clip that everybody was sharing about how she used to get a job as an actor and then hide her ambitions
really
only to reveal them later.
Blurry background of that image.
Don't know why that's happening.
In the past, I've avoided project level.
Good Lord.
And then at the end of that clip that was extracted for you guys to, hate her for, she continues to say, that's what I used to do when I was younger. But I learned that it doesn't really help me and it doesn't really help a bunch of people I'm working with. And so now what I'm doing is I'm forthright. And when I come onto a project, I say exactly what it is that I want to do from the very beginning. And I either work with people that are going to help me do that and then and leave people that won't.
It's
And what's amazing is that Justin Baldoni doesn't even make this claim because in just the first, I think it's it's in his timeline on his website, his lawyer wrote this whole thing out where he was saying that the day that she was brought on to the film in December of 2022, they said that she said she wanted to be a producer and they negotiated. So there she is. There's Justin Baldoni saying that when she came onto the project, she was forthright about what she wanted to be and how she wanted to work on this film. And they negotiated. So literally, he's not even making that claim. So when you say there's a whole interview of Blake out there where she talks about how she likes to rug pull, that's a great example of how you've been tricked to think she's saying something when actually she's saying the opposite. She's saying that what she actually does is the opposite of what they're claiming she said in the middle of that answer.
It's bullshit. You're being lied to, and you're not doing any work.
This is how the smear campaign works, guys.
You're being lied to and you're not doing any work. You're not doing any work at all. If you go watch the Forbes interview, if you actually just watch the clip that they claimed, that the one that they spread all over the internet, if you just watched it for 2 minutes past that, the whole entire context of that conversation changes and the people putting it out look like fools. But instead, you want to believe that shit and then you look like a fool. It's just a way to look like a fool. She literally says, and by the way, I want to point this out one more time because it just gets me so agitated I can't even believe it. If a guy is on a set and he shows up as an actor and then he tries to ambitiously move his way up into other positions such as producer or whatever, he would be considered ambitious. He would be praised for it. They would be like, look at that guy, look how hard he is, look at how devoted he is.
He's got moxie.
Because it's Blake fucking Lively, it's a totally different idea, isn't it? Because it's Blake Lively, all of a sudden it's like, oh, look at her overstepping her boundaries. And by the way, I happen to know what I'm talking about. I am a producer. I produced Leonardo DiCaprio. I've been on these fucking kinds of sets. And I can tell you right now that people work themselves up into these positions all the time. So the idea that Blake Lively might have, been ambitious enough to try to work her way up into another position is just like any other job. It's just like any other job.
Listen,
people do it all the time.
It's just so interesting when people want to say
I'm really irritated tonight. I have to calm down.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. I get so irritated when I'm confronted with people or just this situation where people just want to keep buying into the lies.
Can I just say something?
You couldn't be more exposed. You like this whole thing couldn't be more exposed, and yet you still want to buy into the bullshit.
Yeah.
Like all they've been doing is lying to you over and over and again since January. We've been pointing it out on this channel since the very first filing. It's just been one lie after another. If you go to their website right now and you actually read the complaint or the timeline that they published, you will find them doing nothing but straight up to your face gaslighting you with literal evidence that completely contradicts what they're actually saying in their own narrative in that actual document.
Okay.
And people buy it.
Do you want to just go back to the comments real quick? I wanted to say something.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Shopaholic said, I think you look like a fool right now. We know what we're talking about. It's just really, it's adorable that you guys think that we look foolish when we're not getting tricked by publicists that have admitted that they're doing
You're
astroturfing and
literally Justin Baldoni's entire case has been thrown out.
I know.
Like that's what you're standing here with.
Like the judge was like, "This is some bullshit." He threw it out, but we look idiots.
Like I just want to show how literally boneheaded you sound when literally the judge threw out every single bit of that man's case.
Even before that, though, like the publicists,
Tossed it.
The publicists are Justin Baldoni's own evidence shows the publicists like scheming against you guys, and here you guys are in the comment section totally buying that shit.
You're just basically a puppet. You have no thought for yourself.
Because there is a smear campaign that they've admitted to doing. You can't trust anything that they say about her in the press. Like, just like hold your judgment because you're being used.
My guess is that you hate Blake Lively for no reason. That's my guess. My guess is that you're here right now as a representative of the hatred towards somebody that you don't know, that you have no business hating whatsoever, that you just want to hate so that you can be a part of something maybe, or maybe it's just because hatred is something that you thrive on, because you would have no reason to hate this woman, because what do you know about her really? What do you know about Blake Lively? Actually, how much fucking time have you spent with this woman? Because I'm guessing 0 minutes. 0 minutes. But you're going to sit in these lives or you're going to go into other chat rooms. You're going to talk shit about somebody that you don't even know. You know, and when we're talking about Justin Baldoni, we're talking about the facts in the case. We're talking about people like you showing up and telling us that we're ridiculous because you didn't watch the rest of the Forbes video where she clearly says, I used to go onto sets and I used to try to work my way up into other areas as, you know, getting hired first as an actor. And I found out that didn't work. And so now instead I'm upfront about it. And if they don't like the idea of me getting involved in the back end of the movie, then I lose the movie because sometimes it's better to just sacrifice the opportunities and be clear about what you want. And that's all in that fucking video, but you didn't watch it.
She was literally agreeing with everybody who's criticizing her for saying that.
Literally saying like, everything that everyone else said.
I was wrong.
It didn't work. It was, and by the way, it was a bona fide tactic. Like anybody would do it. We've all gone to our jobs, hired for one thing and tried to be another.
Yeah, you think anybody that like joins the studio mailroom wants to stay there?
Nobody. We start in the fucking mailroom. And by the way, being an actor is not the top of the food chain. It's just the front of the camera. The top of the food chain is producing. That is the top of the food chain in Hollywood. The big shots in Hollywood, they're the producers, not the actors. The actors just happen to, hold a lot of weight and a lot of gain, And
this is so amazing. Okay, Shopaholic said, I hate Blake for the false claims she's making. Well, Justin Baldoni's case just got thrown out for lack of foundation. So how is he not making false claims? And how come he doesn't get any of the smoke?
Hey, workaholic, listen to this. And you hate her for that?
Shopaholic, but he's working a lot in this.
Hey, Shopaholic, what do you think? So you hate Blake Lively for the false claims she's making. First of all, what false claims is she making? And if you're talking about the SH, let me tell you what should have happened and all that needed to happen. When she filed her SH complaint, and I want to be clear about SH again because you're new to this fucking channel. Let me tell you something about SH in case you didn't know. SH is just a small little thing that happens occasionally in companies or in other institutions, and it gets addressed through HR. It's often not really that big of a deal. Sometimes it's just a stupid comment. Maybe it's somebody acting inappropriately and they don't realize it. It could be any number of reasons that somebody in the periphery or somebody who's actually being directly involved might find something objectionable, and they take it to HR, and then they say, hey, I had a problem with this. And the proper fucking thing to happen, Miss Shopaholic, is to solve that problem, is to come together with that individual. And in my case, if I were running a production, I would get the whole crew involved, the whole cast and crew. I would call everybody into a huddle meeting immediately. And I'd be like, there are some questions about whether or not, there's some activity being called into question. I want to make sure everybody has a path to remedy these problems. Like what these guys did was, instead of solving the problems that were arising out of SH complaints and HR complaints, which are just standard business practice, bro. You get an HR complaint, you address it. That's all you have to do. If in the HR complaint somebody is named, such as Justin Baldoni, for example, then that's when Jamie Heath sits Justin down, and that's when Justin Baldoni, who's the director of the movie, would then open up to the whole cast and crew and say, "Listen, guys, apparently I'm a little new at this, and I got to learn some of the rules. I've overstepped some boundaries, and I just want you to know, and I want you to feel comfortable that if you think I've ever done something like that, please feel free to talk to me about it and let me get it corrected right away, because I want you to feel comfortable and I want you to feel safe. I want this production to be a success." But that's not what happened. What happened instead was that they retaliated. And that is the crux of the case. That is where the problem lies. It's not in the SH. You guys are all hung up on SH or whether or not claims are completely subjective when it comes to SH. You don't actually have any right to decide whether or not somebody gets offended by something or not. That's not the place in the world that you get to take. Neither of us do. What offends me may not offend you, and what offends you may not offend me. And whether it does or not doesn't make it any less offensive to the one that it does. And these are the things you need to get right straight in your head so that you can understand the complexity of this case, because it lies in the retaliation. This is the second time Blake Lively's case is the second case that Justin Baldoni and Wayfair has been accused of retaliating against after complaints were raised. And that's where the problem lies. Sony gave them all the rope they needed, meaning Wayfair. They gave Wayfair the opportunity to solve the problem. And had they done that, had Wayfair actually addressed the problem, made everybody feel comfortable, settled the issues with the actual complainants, had they taken care of business the way any other corporation would have, Sony would not have only respected them for it, but they would have worked with them again and again and again, because that's a necessary part of running a successful big business in this and most other countries. Do you know what I'm saying, bro? Do you want to go through comments? Are you going through comments? Mm-hmm. Is it all just bad or people being shitty? We also have TikTok, folks. For the first time, by the way, we had more on TikTok or on YouTube than we had on TikTok. It's just crazy to me, like how brainwashed people are. I love when you guys show up because you guys look silly. The amount of brainwash involved in this is just crazy. I can't understand how you can't see the writing on the wall, especially after the judge literally threw everything out, and not only throw them out, but he embarrassed them when he did. He embarrassed them. The only person who's been on a press tour this whole time has been Brian Friedman on behalf of Justin Baldoni. That's the only press tour that's been going on since January. Actually, since before that, right? Since August. Since before the premiere, those guys have been working the press. Not Blake Lively. Blake Lively worked with one of the greatest writers of our time, and one of the sort of biggest we'll say advocates or whatever voices for Me Too at the New York Times. It's just an entirely credible situation. Shit.
I just think it's really interesting that people are continuing to try and litigate his claims when they're thrown out of court. Like, he doesn't get to make these claims anymore.
Right.
His case is dead.
Yeah.
Everything that he was trying to claim, the judge decided it wasn't supported by any of the evidence. Okay, you guys have to recognize that a judge whose job it is to assess the verity of a case brought before his
court. And also to whom they brought the evidence. Yes. Everything that they said was their case was given to Judge Lyman. He looked at it and he said it's worthless.
He said it's foundationally flawed, and so they can't bring the case. And so all of these things that you're talking about are never going to be proven. We can just keep debating them. You can have your judgments. One thing that we do know, though, is that those publicists discussed with each other how to run a social, what did they call it? A social combat plan.
Right.
Okay. And I just want everybody to recognize that it's possible that everything that you're seeing is a result of that. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't like to think I'm being tricked by any people who work in the media.
Me
right?
neither.
I don't want to be tricked. I don't want to be scammed. I don't want to be told to feel some way emotionally that isn't based in truth.
Right.
And that's what they said they were planning to do. It's what Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath and the Wayfair parties paid them to do.
Yes.
Literally, they chose a suite of services from them that included this.
Correct.
And so I just want you guys to just be open-minded to the fact that maybe you have been tricked by people whose entire career revolves around them being very skillful at tricking people.
Well, I think you're being very generous by asking people to be open-minded, because I'm asking people to just use their eyeballs, use their ears, actually use their brains.
They're also really exploiting...
I'm saying don't be open-minded. I'm saying look at the actual bare facts and stop being fooled.
I know. They're also really exploiting people's ignorance about how films are made. So many of Justin Baldoni's claims just do not make any fucking sense if you know anything about how films are made.
By the way, if you don't know who I am, I'm Dale Wheatley. I wrote and produced a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire that ended up in a 30-year dispute. I ended up in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Leonardo DiCaprio, working with the biggest, baddest attorneys in Hollywood at the time. It was a multi-year lawsuit, and the amount of experience I gained out of it was ridiculous, and I feel particularly helps in looking at this case. It would have been very easy for me, having my life turned upside down by a guy who actually did steal my film from me, Leonardo DiCaprio. It would have been very easy for me to side with Justin Baldoni in this case. It would have been very easy for me to see a pathway where a big movie star would try to steal an up-and-coming fledgling director, his opportunity and his future and all this other stuff. Real easy for me to see all that. It would have been very easy for me to get on his side. But instead, I'm more particularly interested in when I see people who are abusing their power to try and take people down, take down their careers, take down their futures. And that's the shit that Justin Baldoni was up to here. Having a dispute between Blake Lively or having a dispute between anybody is just fine. I mean, it happens all the time, even when SH isn't involved. These are all things that can be solved, and they can be solved amicably. They don't necessarily have to be solved in a manner that says, hey, we got to be best friends and do the kumbaya either. It can just be that, hey, let's just get through this. This happens all the time in movies, bro. People just get to the end of the shoot and tolerate the differences that get you there, because we're human beings. We're not going to all get along. So if Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively didn't get along, it didn't need to turn into this train wreck of a situation.
And I just want to point out, there's one piece of evidence that ensures that he's going to lose his case, and this exists, and nobody is refuting that this is a real evidence. He's has it on his side, she has it on her side. Okay, this was produced by Stephanie Jones, who got the text messages straight from her own devices. Okay. Justin Baldoni sends a text message to his publicist saying, we would need something like this. And it is a screenshot of Hailey Bieber. In some article, they're claiming that she is a bully to other women. Okay? Mm-hmm. He is literally not allowed to do that.
Right.
He's not allowed to attack somebody's character.
No.
And he's directing his publicist to make up a false allegation. He said, we would need something like this, and it involves a different woman.
Correct.
This is exactly the sort of thing he's being sued for.
Yes.
It shows in that text message that he did it.
Correct.
That's the reason why he's going to lose his case. I think you guys should all just prepare yourselves, because
he's going to lose
that
bad.
is super incriminating. And on the other side, the receiving end of that, they never should have entertained that, because professional ethics in publicity and crisis PR, they're not even supposed to entertain attacking somebody else. They're only ever supposed to improve their own client's reputation and work on shaping a narrative that improves their own client's situation and the way they look in the media. They
make statements like, while
he is a victim of somebody else who's attacking him, but they can't go and try and disparage somebody else's reputations. And you can tell that they understand that, because they're trying to be really secretive. They keep saying, we will assure you that this is untraceable, and all of this, the work that we're doing is going to look organic, and you can rest assured that this is, that everything is, what did they call it? There was something else that they were talking about when they were hiring Jed Wallace, that they were like, he's totally, they were basically describing astroturfing, where it's just not going to look like it comes from us. It's going to look like it's
organic.
Yeah, and it's just like the reason why they're all going to go down, and why Blake Lively is going to prevail in proving that there was a smear campaign, without even having to prove that her allegations in the beginning were even true, right? Mm-hmm. He is not allowed to retaliate against her for anything. You're not allowed to just go and destroy somebody's reputation in the press without being liable for defamation. I mean,
so that brings up this question, okay? So Shopaholic says Blake won the battle. Oh wait, won the battle. She won the battle. This is not a battle, dude. This guy's bleeding in the ditch. You had something else, Dale. Blake was the one who went public and filed the lawsuit, it wasn't Baldoni. Well, first of all, she would be the one filing a lawsuit. He's not going to sue himself. And so obviously if she has a dispute, then she's going to be one that's filing a lawsuit. That is not what happened. He's the one who went public first. That is all detailed in the emails and texts between him and Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel. They engaged in, and knowingly engaged in, creating organic hits on Blake Lively's reputation in the press. We saw it happen. It unfolded in real time. They still did it even after the case was filed. What Blake Lively did was perfectly in line with all of our rights as human beings. She filed a CDC complaint, and after filing that complaint, she started working with a writer. CRD. Yeah. CDC is hilarious. She filed a CRD complaint, and after filing her CRD complaint, she started working with Megan Twohey at the New York Times to get the story right, to get her side of the story out.
To get the story reported. That's all that Megan Twohey did. It's crazy that she was even being sued for it. She just reported on evidence that the Wayfarer party is generated.
And remember, like when you were saying that the Blake Lively is the one who went at it first, well, that's been thrown out. That case has literally been thrown out. They went to the judge with that case, and the judge threw that case out. So pardon me, what you're saying is baseless. It's not real. So sorry. All Blake Lively did was stand up for herself. And by the way, the mentality that Blake Lively had when she filed at the CRD, she filed that because she believed that because she learned through those texts, through that confiscated phone, that Justin Baldoni had hired a PR firm, a crisis PR firm, with the objective of completely vilifying her in the press. So when she got Megan Twohey involved, she got Megan Twohey involved because it was a blatant and vile violation of retaliation laws. He's not allowed to do that, dude.
He's not allowed to do that.
That's like so illegal, it's ridiculous. And so she civilly had every right to do what she did. And the only way, listen, I'm suffering from the same thing. Everything that I do in press, the reason I'm doing these lives in the first place, the reason why I'm working social media at all, is because I have to live with every day Leonardo DiCaprio's extraordinary press machine putting his foot on my neck. I am completely suppressed in every way. He shuts me down. He shuts me down in the press. He shuts me down in the public. I have to fight for every word and breath I can get out there.
Yeah, these Hollywood publicists are very skilled. That's why you guys should you guys should just be way more suspicious than you are that you're being tricked. It's just crazy.
The thumbnail says that these two people, that being Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, they're changing the business forever. And the way that they're doing that is with PR. I learned through Blake Lively so much of what Leonardo DiCaprio had done to me that I didn't even know. That is like symptomatically, like you can check them off. Like
exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly the same. Like
it's a playbook, bro.
People showing up with 0 followers, 0 users, like just zeros across the board with all this knowledge about me and placing it in whether it's Reddit or TikTok or wherever.
Right.
And so I've been subjected to the very same tactics that Blake Lively is being subjected to. I know they're real. And by the way, she's the one who's exposing it, and it's going to change everything because, now the villains are out.
I know. Speaking of changing the business forever, I don't know if you guys remember, but the promise of the Me Too movement that I thought that we were all unanimously behind was that if somebody sees something go wrong on a set where somebody's being mistreated or there's some sort of abuse happening or there's some sort of like sexual impropriety, they're supposed to complain about it. They're supposed to complain about it, and they're supposed to complain about it without retaliation. That was what the Me Too movement was all about. So here's Blake Lively being like, oh, okay, well, I certainly learned that lesson. Seems like I'm working on a set where they didn't. Let me just do the thing we've all agreed we're going to do now from now on, which is speak up when we see people being, mistreated on a set, since it's a workplace. Yeah. And we all deserve a fair and equitable workplace.
Absolutely. By the way, if you're enjoying the space, please hit a like button just while we got you here. Sorry, Angela.
That's okay.
But please hit the like button if you can, if you guys are enjoying the space we've created for this conversation. And, we hope that and I know I can get a little feisty about it and get a little, ornery about it. But listen, man, I've had my ass kicked by the very same people that Justin Baldoni is hiring to kick Blake's ass. I've got the bruises on my proverbial self. And let me tell you, man, it's disgusting. It's horrible. It should be illegal. It's so funny because Shopaholic says Dale Blake lost the public battle. You've completely, what's interesting about that? You're putting that on Blake. Blake had nothing to do with the public. The public battle that you think you lost was actually the very smear campaign that she's fighting against. She's still fighting the battle. There was nothing to lose there, Shopaholic. There was literally nothing to lose there.
That's they call that majority bias.
Majority bias, huh?
Yeah, where like you think that the way you think is the way everybody thinks. Like, oh, I have an opinion. The majority must also have my opinion.
Right.
Like I couldn't possibly be in the minority in the way that I think.
But even if the majority had the opinion that Blake Lively.
No, are you saying Blake Lively had lost the?
But what I'm saying is that
public.
I know, but I'm saying even if the public's perception is that Blake Lively lost something in the public, she didn't. There wasn't her battle. She never even started any of this. This was all done to her. She's a victim.
Her lawyers are actually ethical. They're not actually conducting a smear campaign.
She wasn't in a competition with anybody. There was nothing to lose here. She's embattled.
Well, also, she's the one who continues to have a career, and Justin Baldoni doesn't.
Well,
so.
I mean, arguably, she has a career. I would say arguably. But to say that she lost the battle is absurd, or to even say that she won the battle legally lately. The only thing that's prevailing here is the truth. And I love how it's driving, like, the Baldonians like crazy.
On TikTok, KMCD username said, many of Wayfarer's claims were thrown out because Blake has protections under a California law 47.1. That's the Me Too law, the anti-retaliation law. Yeah. And don't you think...
Treble damages are coming.
Don't you think that his lawyer should have known that?
Yeah.
Like the same...
Brian Freeman's a joke.
Okay, so the same lawyer who's weaving all of these controversies for you guys to eat up. Meanwhile, showing you guys evidence that completely refutes most of his claims in the same, like on the same page, he'll write 2 really hyperbolic paragraphs of a claim, and then he'll show the evidence, and it completely is the opposite. So that's just one thing I just don't know why more people aren't noticing. But if he's filing a lawsuit that is literally against the law, don't you think that he is to blame for getting his client treble damages? That's not Blake Lively's fault.
It's 100% his fault.
It's not. It is not fucking Blake Lively's fault.
No, of course it's not.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
so if Justin Baldoni lost because his lawyer is a bad lawyer,
terrible lawyer,
then who can you blame other than them? That their whole side is losing because they have from the start messed up this entire thing. That Justin Baldoni took legal advice from his crisis PR, Melissa Nathan, is the most... That was really where it turned for him. And he was never going to win anything after he did that.
I want to
She was like, you need to lawyer up and fight this. It's like, dude, you don't take advice from somebody who's going to profit immensely from you making that decision.
I want to repeat something because it's certainly worth repeating, and that is that oh God, it completely slipped my mind. I'm sorry. I was trying to interrupt you because
She's a crisis PR person, and she was like, you know what I think you should do? I think you should get involved with more crisis.
Well, I mean, that's, she's feeding her own. She's feeding her own.
I know, but like, what a fucking dumbass! I can't believe that he's just surrounded by these like bloodthirsty fucking cretins, and like I feel sort of sorry for him, but he's too dumb to realize.
I don't feel sorry for somebody who could have solved this problem in his own house with nobody.
I know he was in charge. He was the boss.
He was in charge. He lost control of all of this. And by the way, he's the one who reached out for crisis management and crisis PR. They didn't reach out to him. It wasn't like, hey, we hear you're having a crisis. He went and sought out this solution. And by the way, when he sought out this solution, Melissa Nathan had a reputation for being an absolute fucking horror show in the PR space. And Justin Baldoni's own public PR rep told him, we're not going to use her.
Yeah, Stephanie Jones was like, no, we don't work with Melissa Nathan.
Stephanie Jones said no.
That would be a bad
idea. What did it get him? And then he went behind his own publicist's back, using his own publicist's employee to hire Melissa Nathan. And Melissa Nathan already had a reputation for blowing shit up. He asked for all of this.
You know that meme where the guy's riding the bike and he's got like a stick, and then he like puts the stick right in the spokes and he falls over his bike?
Yeah.
And he's like writhing on the ground with like a hurt leg, and he's like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah.
They did this to me.
No, I believe
that's Justin Baldoni.
Isn't it this saying, he cuts off his nose to spite his face?
Shanice Marie is with us on TikTok.
Okay.
People who aren't chronically online don't care about
Hi, by the way.
People who aren't chronically online don't care about this case, guys. Internet discourse doesn't always translate to real life. Okay.
It's
so
super important. They would probably just go to another channel, I guess.
I know. So check it out. Like, everything is terrible. And I recognize that, like, if you talk about most things, it's terrible. And so let us just have this, like, celebrity gossip space.
Right.
where we talk about things that don't really matter
Yeah.
and that don't affect us. Like everybody involved in this case is going to continue to be rich. They're going to continue
Well, I do
to be
have
somewhat
something-
sheltered from the horrors
Yeah.
of the world. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I
Kind of
think
fun to like play in Playland a little bit.
yeah, it's just a little fun for me. There's a little more at stake, and that's why I get a little hot under the collar, because I've had my life completely destroyed by the very same forces that Justin Baldoni uses to try and destroy Blake Lively's. And what I get to witness is what it would have been like if I had some money to fight Leonardo DiCaprio. Like if I had some real money and some real like success in my life, instead of being this like, you know, starving artist, which is what I was when he put the foot down on my neck. If I'd have been like, you know, at least reasonably formidable, it's just fun to see that, you know, there was a fight I could have had, you know, like if I had the money, like I never had the money for an attorney. All I did was get railed everywhere I went in that town. I had no money.
No, I know, like
the
this-
poor get tossed around.
Imagine if you could do like an astroturfing campaign, if you could hire Judd fucking Wallace.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Back
I mean,
then.
he was obviously being hired by Leo because it's all over my stuff. And he's the only guy who does it, apparently. So if he's the only guy who does it, then Leo was already a customer. And it makes sense that this guy's going to have all of Hollywood, because if he's got literally a force of humanity, and I even heard that there's a possibility he's using prisoners for this, but it doesn't matter. If he has a force of humanity out there who are literally physically going into these social medias and you know, propagating lies and twists and turns and stories that don't exist and so on and so forth, I'm never going to have and this always goes back to class wars, right? It's like in litigation, like I have no chance. By the way, if you guys want to read a really kick-ass book that I'm probably going to get sued over eventually, as soon as you guys read enough of it, it's called Too Real a Hollywood Memoir. I wrote this book about Leonardo DiCaprio, like literally destroying my life and me fighting him back. It's a great ride. Check out the reviews on Amazon. It's free on Kindle Unlimited, by the way, but you can also get 20% off at tworealbook.com by just putting tworeal20 in the discount code at the checkout, and I'll send you a signed copy of the book if you want one. It's a really good book. Just read the reviews. Don't take my word for it. Sorry. This is brought to you by.
If people want a signed copy, they have to message you though, right?
No, I just changed it. I'm gonna just every copy is gonna ship signed.
Oh.
If you buy it from me, it's a signed copy. That's
Okay.
it.
How come?
Because somebody bought a book and wanted it signed, and I shipped it and I didn't sign it because I didn't see any indication that they wanted it signed, and I just felt really bad. And I was like, well, fuck. If you don't want a signed copy, what is it gonna bother you? You're gonna be like, oh, this book is ruined. It's
Well-
signed by the author.
Well, I know that if I was buying a book that are you putting a name in there? So if they're
Let's talk
buying
about
your
this
book,
later for sure. Like
if you're
people
buying
are
a
just
book-
leaving. Like, you know, it's just not interesting. But I'm just going to sign your book if you want it. If you don't want it signed, you can, you know, then buy it from Amazon. If you don't want a book at all, then don't buy it at all and never come back here. No, I'm totally kidding.
never show your
And
face
never
here.
show your face around here again.
Shanice Marie apologized, said that wasn't directed at you guys.
Which,
Sorry, I was more referring to the people who think.
no, I'm okay. It's cool. No, but I'm not. I'm saying like for people who are like wrapped up in something that they think is ridiculous, they should get themselves out of ridiculous. That's all
I mean,
I'm
it
saying.
was a worthwhile comment for us too, because like this, yeah,
It's true.
You said
I get hot under the color, and I shouldn't. I really
you said
shouldn't.
internet discourse doesn't always translate to real life.
It's-
Yeah, and
yeah.
like we definitely do not need to be caring about celebrities. There's people that get like so pissed at Blake Lively,
Yeah.
and like
I can't stand the hatred. I don't understand
bro,
it.
like
It frightens
why
me.
are you letting them manipulate your emotions like that?
Yeah.
like you really should not be forfeiting your peace for celebrities. Like
can't-
they
I can't-
do not care about you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we can all just have a fun time gossiping, and it doesn't have to affect our emotional stability.
Like it doesn't, you know, and like these people aren't going to care about you ever, even if they say they are. So why are you going to let them ruin your life or your day, you know, or your moment? Now I have a different stake in all of this, and mine's very personal and it's very different. And so that's what makes me a bit of an interesting fellow to get some information on this from, or to share some information on it. But, you know, to be out in the wild and to be allowing this to ruin your day, like, you know, people would show up in my comments and they'd be like just shouting at me, and I'd be like, why are you letting these people ruin your day? And also turning you into somebody who would treat a complete stranger the way you treat me now. Why would you allow somebody else to turn you into something that would like have you mistreating people you don't even know? Doesn't that seem really extreme? Like people come over, come into our comments and they say shit, and I'm just like, why?
I think you get a little too hot about it. Like I know.
Hey, you want to step outside? You want to step outside? And
I mean, I know it hits
discuss
home, so it brings up a lot of like real things you experienced, which were horrible. So like I get that part. But at the end, like both of these people are going to be fine. Like Justin Baldoni's still going to have his rich Sarowitz to pay for whatever.
I'm not concerned about any of these people. I get hot under the collar because what I see is a mass manipulation of people, and we're our last defense. We are our own last defense here. And we're living in a world where we're being completely manipulated by every force available. And so we have people coming up like Shopaholic who's sitting here and like reiterating things that are just absolutely untrue, that she could have only learned through them and just decided that she'll just go with it. And getting these limited bites of information and taking these limited bites of information and going to bank with them.
There's so many of these comments
and the result of that is like is harm to another person's life. And so true. I do get passionate about that.
There's so many of these comments that just don't make sense if you look into them for more than a fucking second.
Right.
Like, let's see, Shopaholic said, "Oh, Stephanie Jones, the woman who stole the phone." Like, dude, that was her phone. Like,
it was her fucking phone. Do you ever have it?
Don't get upset about it. What I'm pointing it out because it's like, dude, if you think about these things for 2 fucking seconds, you'd see that you're wrong. Like,
well, maybe you don't know that
she
sometimes
didn't steal
employers
a fucking phone. It's her fucking phone. Like,
maybe you don't know that some employers offer phones to their employees. Maybe you don't know that.
I mean, if you know that if you think that Stephanie Jones stole the phone, that's because you're engaging in some sort of description of how she got the evidence that she ended up handing over to Blake Lively, evidence of the smear campaign. So it's like they obviously know that there's a phone involved. It's Stephanie Jones that used to belong to Jennifer Abel that has all this incriminating shit on it. So it's like, dude, if you just look into it for 2 fucking seconds, the reason why Stephanie Jones even has that in the first place is because it belongs to her. That's her
steal
property.
It's
just
guess
weird.
what actually happened?
It's just
Jennifer
weird.
Abel took her phone and handed it to her. That's exactly what happened. Literally, she took her phone and her computer, both which belonged to Jones Publicity, whatever the name of the firm is. Jonesworks, and she handed it to her boss because her boss paid for it.
And like,
she owned
I'm not
it.
saying I'm a fan of any of these fucking publicists. I think that they're evildoers. I don't think that any of them are nice people. But I'm just saying, like, if their big complaint about not handing over the phone is because they didn't want incriminating evidence about how they were orchestrating a smear campaign against Blake Lively, who they're just not supposed to be able to do that as publicists. She's not their client. They shouldn't have anything to do with her. If that's their complaint, then it's just more incriminating. They're burying themselves further if they're like, hey, I'm going to sue you for giving over this super incriminating evidence that I generated that incriminates me and will make me liable for a lawsuit.
Perfume Therapy on YouTube says, no, it was Jen Abel's phone. That's not true. That's simply, completely, and totally not true. It was a 100. Listen, why did the case get thrown out? If that woman stole her phone, why would the case not get thrown out? Why would the case get thrown out? Why would Lyman throw a case out where the publicist stole the phone to get the information? Because that would show a different form of liability.
Well, then that's the next level of the gymnastics tournament. They do all these mental gymnastics, right?
Yeah.
So you say, oh, well, it's because Judge Lyman is compromised.
Well, I actually think people are saying this because I think that there's a confusion around some of the allegations that have been made against Sloan, that she had continued to check messages on the phone that were ongoing and incoming that weren't belonging to Jonesworks. So in other words, Jennifer Abel had not gone into her personal emails and stopped the push notifications going into her work phone.
Okay, but do you see what I mean?
So what I'm saying, did you hear what I said?
Yes.
So people are conflating that. I think people are listening to things and saying, oh, look at there's wrongdoing, which by the way, if Sloan were looking at her personal emails that were coming into the phone and doing that through her personal email account, that would actually be a RICO violation if I'm not mistaken.
It's just a giant shiny key, right? They're trying to divert your attention away from the fact that Stephanie Jones, Jennifer Abel, and Melissa Nathan do not argue the verity of those email messages and those text messages.
Well, exactly. By the way, just to interrupt you.
Totally admit that
let me interrupt
they
you for a
sent
second
things.
because Shopaholic is reiterating what I'm saying. She gave the company phone but she also used private. Then Stephanie Jones went into the cloud. And this is what I'm talking about. So you're right. So Shopaholic, there's the accusation that occurred. There is no proof that occurred, but there's the accusation that occurred.
Okay, but they're not saying that they didn't send those messages where they were trying to do a smear campaign against Blake Lively.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, at what point does it stop mattering to you guys how the data was collected when they're admitting that they did the thing they're being accused of doing?
Well,
like,
in fairness,
she's gonna win her case.
Well, in fairness, you can't obtain evidence unlawfully in any part of you're not supposed to, in any part of the judicial system in America. And you shouldn't be able to do that. That would be a violation if it happened. And I would be on the side of Jennifer Abel if Jennifer Abel's phone or information were being used illegally by anybody on their side.
I get what you're saying, but here we are not being the judge in the case and not having to rule on whether all of this evidence was obtained legally. What we're simply talking about is whether Justin Baldoni is innocent and whether he deserves to win his defense against Blake Lively's case.
Yeah, but
those messages are not refuted. Those messages where they were orchestrating a smear campaign against Blake Lively are true, according to them. They're only complaining about how that was obtained, which is not our business, right? If we're talking here about whether Justin Baldoni was innocent of sending and those messages and orchestrating a smear campaign,
right?
Those messages, however they exist and however they came to light, are proof of that. And that's what I'm interested in, because the discussion that we're talking about is not about whether the judge is going to let the evidence in.
Yes, but
the discussion we're talking about is whether Justin Baldoni's fucking innocent.
Well, no, because ethics matter, right? Like it shows the kind of character that's behind things. Like, for example, if you find something,
ethics matters to the court. Yeah.
Oh, man, Angela, let me finish. If somebody finds, if you look on my phone and you find out that I've been inappropriate and you did so by violating my privacy and looking at my phone, there's a bigger problem. There's a whole bigger problem. So just because
that's a really great example of what I'm saying.
Just because the facts won't change and that I did do something wrong doesn't make what you did right. And I don't want to spend our life arguing about this because I don't think it's worth arguing about as it relates to this case, because what we do know is that didn't happen. And by the way, if you have a phone that is connected to the cloud that you just recovered from your employee, it's not going to be it's not going to be Sloan's issue to go in there and make sure that it's Jennifer Abel who needed to go on and stop the phone from pushing any data, or stop her personal data from being pushed to that phone. And she should have done that immediately. And so it's incumbent on her. If I send you a computer and it's got my email on it and you open it up and you start seeing my emails, I'm going to have a harder time proving liability against you unless you actually, start becoming ridiculous and actually checking them, responding to them, or, using them against me. The point is that Sloan was being exposed to those emails as, more than she was snooping into them. And, look, if she was doing something wrong, she'd be charged with it, or there would be some kind of civil, litigation regarding it. And there is none. And not only is there none, but the judge actually threw out any claims against Sloan. So is it Sloan? Yeah, it's Sloan.
No.
Sorry.
Jones?
Against Jones.
Leslie Sloan is Blake Lively's publicist.
Yeah, I get their names up as Jones, Sloan.
She got brought into the case and she's like, I don't know anything. Like, in all the text messages where they're trying to implicate her, she's like, I don't know what's going on. It's just really
crazy. Jones v. Abel hasn't been thrown out, and it was Jennifer Abel's. Yeah, but that's fine, but that doesn't have anything to do with this case. Like, that's, the Jones delegates saying that Jones v. Abel hasn't been thrown out, and it was Jennifer Abel's phone that she used for work. She didn't separate the two, and that's why Jones gets access, because Jones was paying for it. It's the same thing. It's just like when I got, and this probably happens to you too, Delicate, but I've worked at whatever, Fortune 500, where I can either get a phone or use my own phone, and the phone that they would send me would be crap, so I would use my own phone. So, and we got a credit. So I got to use like some kind of credit. But thank you for clarifying that. Bottom line is that she had legal access to that data, and she used it. And it was data specific to her business email, I'm sure, primarily, but I actually don't know where those facts come from.
Rachel on TikTok said, I think some people just like getting upset. And it's true.
I do sometimes.
I think they did some studies about...
exercise my demons.
I think they did some studies about that when everybody was really perplexed about how they kept losing their parents to, like, Fox News, and they just like their super caring, empathetic parents had turned into these like rage baited monsters.
Yeah.
And it's actually like getting angry releases dopamine. So that's literally people get addicted to reacting angrily to things.
Yeah. We were talking about how like people should be more responsible in the things that they're trying to learn or be clearer about. And I saw this interesting headline because there was this it was this headline that said that Diddy's lawyers took 20 minutes to close their case and it's not
his defense?
It wasn't. It was like this whole other thing. It was like and this lawyer showed up. Actually, I can probably find it right here. It's really interesting. Oh yeah, it might be right here. So yeah, exactly. The headline says Sean Diddy Combs' team ends their defense after only 20 minutes, and let me see. Let me bring you to the guy because it's like there's a lawyer here. Sorry to burst everybody's bubble, but this was just a motion for judgment of acquittal, which is a rote motion to the court that the defense almost never wins. Closing arguments to the jury are Thursday, should be today, and journalists could at least pretend. And then they said journalists could at least pretend to try, for fuck's sake, because of the headline. And then he edits his post or his response, and he says, "I'm not responding to any of the well actually comments below. I've been a criminal defense attorney for 16 fucking years. I'm literally writing a JOA in a murder trial as we speak. I know what it is, thanks." And this is what we're talking about with people who show up with these ideas and these facts. They go see a deadline or a headline. They go see a snippet of something and they become a fucking expert.
Well,
when they
also,
show up and they argue against experts who are telling them, now that's bullshit. It happened to me with the wardrobe. People were coming into my comments talking to me about how I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. Them going over budget by a few $100,000 in wardrobe as some kind of violation by Blake Lively when it was actually ridiculous. And then it wasn't until months later that the line producer's actual text came out, where the line producer wasn't declaring an emergency beyond the fact that they needed more money on the cards. And you wouldn't ask for more money on the cards if you were having a budgetary concern. You would call for a meeting with the producers to go over the budget and to be able to find the money that you need if it's not there. They were working on contingencies and barely a small percentage of that as it was.
Baldoni's whole publicity ecosystem has depended really heavily like
on this,
like oxygen.
Yeah.
It has depended so heavily on exploiting the fact that people don't know how films are made.
Correct.
Like just the fact that he is claiming that she stole the cut from him.
Yes.
Like, guys, you have to realize that it's total bullshit when you just stop for a second and recognize that a studio cut exists and that sometimes directors get a cut.
Well, first of all, you got to know what a cut is.
Like the difference between a studio cut and a director's cut is always a thing between. It's just like if you've ever seen like a movie that was released as the director's cut, that's exactly what Justin Baldoni was dealing with. But those people don't sue their star for that, No. It's just absurd. This about, you were talking about the Diddy case.
Yeah.
Similarly, this lawyer had to show up and was like, you guys are being stupid.
Yeah.
Well, this reporter that was covering the trial covered that the prosecutors have dropped several charges against Diddy.
Yeah.
Okay. The prosecutors dropped attempted kidnapping, attempted arson, aiding sex trafficking charges in the Diddy case. They're now pushing for clearer jury instructions on the main sex trafficking and forced labor counts, calling them complex.
Yeah. I know everyone thought that was a
and everybody thought
win.
that meant that he was going to go free, and this lawyer showed up.
Everyone was like, hey, listen, when I first heard it, because I'm a layman as like everybody else, when I first heard it, I was like, that can't be good for the prosecutor.
Right. So this guy was like, prosecutors are streamlining the predicate acts they're asking the jury to consider. They're narrowing the field to stronger, more provable crimes like sex trafficking, forced labor, bribery, drug distribution, and kidnapping. So it's not that they're like, dropping charges. They're just streamlining it because they don't want to overburden their jury.
Yep.
But this is interesting. My favorite Twitter astrologer, DK Astrology, was asked because she had a lot of predictions about. She predicts things based on astrology, and she's usually right.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because she'll revisit it.
You brought her up on the show more than once.
She'll revisit, like when the thing happens, she'll be like, yep, I predicted this just a few months ago.
Yeah.
So she predicted.
She's talented.
She predicted Diddy's downfall.
Yeah.
And so somebody was like, hey, is he going to walk? And she goes, with these transits, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction squaring Jupiter is right on his Chiron, connected to his MC. Pluto is right on his Mars. Jupiter in his sixth house of enemies with the new moon. These do not spell freedom to me.
No, it's not looking good. Guess who's here?
Who?
Nadine.
Oh, hi, Nadine.
Hi, Nadine.
That's great.
She says, there's a movie called The Brainwashing of My Dad. It started listening.
Yes.
I've heard of this. He started listening to...
Limbaugh, I bet.
Well, he started listening to the network. I guess we're supposed to not say the
Oh, really?
I guess
Did I
so.
screw that up?
the faux news. She calls it the faux news network.
Yeah, that's good.
And went over the edge. It's good. I want to see that. The brainwashing of my dad.
That's very sad.
It's the brainwashing of all of us. You know, look, and here's the thing. Like, I'm not, by the way, somebody who hasn't succumbed to this. I'm like everybody else, man. I've shown up with my facts all fucking deranged and not knowing how to handle them, and or believing in something that wasn't actually real. I've gone through all of that, and I'm sure I'll go through it again. But I'm always checking myself, and whenever something to the contrary comes up, I pay attention. I don't fucking immediately butt heads with it. I'm like, is this true? Like, for example, when Blake Lively, the first thing that happened when Blake Lively, when that little clip came out about Blake Lively and the Forbes interview where she said that she would pull the rug out from under others by hiding the fact that she wanted more than just to be an actor on any particular project that she was hired on. And the very first thing that I did when I saw that, as I went to YouTube and I found the whole interview, it was the first thing I did. I didn't even hesitate. I literally was like, oh, really? Went to the interview, popped it up, watched the whole thing, saw the whole thing was a fucking lie and a fraud. And then I made a video about it on my TikTok channel.
It's just basic media literacy, guys. You have to practice media literacy. We can't just believe everything they're shoving down our throats. Because look,
you got to make an effort.
If you're so easy to trick with stupid celebrity stories, like, just think about what the government's doing.
Yeah,
you know,
seriously,
like, it'll affect
dude.
your life.
For real.
Sometimes people are really savvy about this, though. I don't know if you remember. They finalized their divorce in September of 2024. So, like, last summer, there was this big debate about Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner were divorcing.
Oh.
And the publicists that worked for Joe Jonas had started to put out all of these, as soon as they announced that they were splitting up, we started to see all of these headlines in these like tabloid magazines about how Sophie Turner somehow is a bad mother.
Yeah.
And people did not fucking fall for it. And I was really proud of everybody because they were like, this is fucking fishy. This is fishy. Why are we sharing stories about how Sophie Turner is a bad mother, and why all of a sudden is this relevant to us? Like, what is Joe Jonas doing? Like, they knew exactly how it stunk and who was making it stink. And so it's just frustrating that we can't have that kind of like scrutiny, right? That kind of skepticism about all of this stuff.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just believe everything you're told.
No.
That's not the way to engage with any of this stuff.
Believe me when I tell you that Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom are no longer engaged. They were engaged for 9 years.
Does it make you sad?
It's so heartbreaking. All I wanted was Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom to marry and have children. No, anyway, I didn't even know they were together, actually. Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom are ending their engagement. They break up after 9 years. And this before the big wedding of the century. The big giant wedding in Venice with Jeff the Bezos. The top comment was the best, and why I brought it here, because it's a Reddit post. And the top comment is Katy Perry just needed a little space. Apparently, she just needed a little space. 15,000 upvotes. I've never had 15,000 upvotes for something so deliciously funny, in my opinion. I loved it.
But you're not sad.
No, I don't give a shit. Katy Perry, come on, annoys me. She came and kissed the earth and all this nonsense.
It was pretty heavy when she apparently, I didn't watch it because I'm not a fan, but she apparently had a documentary about where Russell Brand broke up with her, like over the phone or over text.
Yeah. That was
before she was supposed to go on and play like a massive concert.
Yeah. And
like she's just like crying in the wings while they're like elevating her on the platform to go up to the stage. It's so intense.
They did this apparently RD. This is an old documentary. This is a documentary from like 2011 or something, because RD went and saw it and he loved it. His daughter at the time was a Katy Perry fan.
That's when she was wearing like all of her big like a big pizza suit or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, exactly. He loved that doc. He said it was amazing. He went and saw it in the theaters.
What?
Yeah. Oh, he took his kid. He wasn't like Artie Robb showing up with like a fucking, a will call.
I would watch those. I would watch more concert documentaries.
The one I want to see is the Taylor Swift one. Delicate, what's the Taylor Swift one I have to watch?
It's called Eras, I think.
No, it's a different one. Is it called Eras? What is it, Delicate? I got to see this soon.
It's for the Eras tour.
If you're not, I really love Taylor Swift. I listen to her every day now.
You're not going to beat those biased allegations, Dale, if you're a Taylor Swift fan and you're also arguing for Blake Lively.
Why? I'm a fucking Eric Clapton fan, and I think he's a douche.
Yeah, he's a racist pig.
He's a racist pig. Can play a mean guitar. And I still love those old records. I just don't love the man, and I can live without loving the man and still love the records. It's the same thing I say to Leo fans who are like, who feel empathy toward my story, or who feel that I'm being truthful and forthright about my story. And then they're like, but what about Leo? And I'm like, this is my fault. This is my problem, not your problem. You can like wish he would be a different way, but I'm not saying don't love Leo. I'm just saying hold him accountable for the things that he should be held accountable for. By the way, Workaholics said something really funny about Leo. She said Leo's like whatever he's. I can't remember.
You're misnaming them. I think Shopaholic. I guess.
I mean, Shopaholic said something funny. She said that
why is it she a she?
Because a dude's not a shopaholic, is he?
Dale.
Is that racist? Because a guy wouldn't call himself a shopaholic.
Why not?
I don't know. Okay. So Shopaholic said, they said that Leo is getting better because his girlfriend is now 27 years old.
Oh yeah. So that's an improvement.
He's literally turning 50 this year. Or did he already turn 50? He turned 50 already. I think he's 50 already.
His birthday's in November.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He turned 50 because he did that really cringy, like, rapping that everybody caught and spread on social media.
Do you know whose 50th birthday he was at, by the way? Also? I don't know if you know this, but he was front and center for Diddy's 2019 50th birthday. He was there. Saw all kinds of pictures of it. I think that's the one where he's, like, rapping.
Oh, it was his. Oh, okay.
That was Diddy's birthday.
Ah, yeah, right.
I think.
Oh, man.
You know what the funny thing about that is? He said that he was so he had said in a statement after all this Diddy stuff hit, in a statement he said that, Diddy was long gone and that he was just like every other young kid in Hollywood who wanted to go to the parties and hang out at the parties. But he was at the 50th birthday.
It was the most relatable thing that Leo ever did, because who among us hasn't been like super cringy having a nice time at a party, and like it's just a shame that he got caught on camera and everybody made fun of him for it.
Yeah.
That would happen to me.
Hey, we got 420 views on YouTube, so spark it.
Spark it? Spark it up?
Spark it up. Guys, I really appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out with us tonight. If you guys can hit the like button and help us, that'd be really, really great. If it's not too much trouble. It does help us. We're trying to grow this channel so that I can sell more books. And if I sell more books, maybe I can break the curse of Leonardo DiCaprio, bro. Maybe I can break free from a guy who's been holding me back for 30 fucking years. I feel like this is my last chance to do it. So I wrote a book that is like ungodly, like raw and honest. I mean, no lawyers, no publicists, no publishers, just my raw truth on the page and out the door. And I wrote it for you guys in a way that I think will give you a truly unique experience and bring you all the way back into the 90s during one of the more enjoyable periods in independent film history in America. So come for a ride and read Too Real, a Hollywood memoir. You can check it out on Amazon. You can buy it directly from me on my website at toorealbook.com. And if you don't want to spend any money at all, you can get a Kindle Unlimited membership trial. It's 3 months for free. It'll take you 4 days to read my book if you're slow. And then you'll have an entire 2.5, 3 more months, almost 3 full months to read a bunch of other books if you like reading so much. So check it out. Support independent artists like me, and It'll reward your soul. I don't know if that's true, but I'm just going to tell you that to try and make you do it.
Okay, some information from the chat.
Thanks. What do you got?
Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom do have children.
Oh, they have kids. Well, they're 9 years. I mean, that's sad.
The documentary is Miss Americana on Netflix. Thank you, Shanice Marie and Mel Drisk.
Oh, this is the Katy Perry one?
Yeah.
Okay. That was like at her peak.
Mel Drisk said, Spotify play The Man by Taylor Swift.
I love that.
That's great.
I don't even, I don't know if I know that song.
And then Delicate said The Social Dilemma is a documentary that's also related to this. It's about how social media is manipulating.
I'm kind of excited that we're here and that
I think I'm getting fatigued.
It's okay.
My tongue isn't working anymore.
Yeah, I kind of glad that we're here because we're never going to succumb to that. Like, there's no amount of money that people can pay us for me to want to talk about something that I don't believe is true or something that compromises my values or my principles or my beliefs. Like, this is going to be our space, and it doesn't matter how many people come. If one person comes, if 400 people come, it doesn't matter. If 10,000 people come, I'm never going to change that. I want to create a space where we're not riding the wave of misinformation, where we're not subjecting ourselves to it, where we're trying to call each other out when we're when we've bought into it in any way.
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing to recognize is that nobody's immune. These people are really skilled at manipulating people and changing their opinions about stuff. There was that recent study where they said that they sent AI into one of these into the subreddit Change My Mind, and 100% of the time it successfully did that. It changed the minds of people.
Yeah.
So it's like there's no reason to believe that this won't be weaponized against people. Just like for little stupid shit like celebrity drama and other like more consequential stuff like whether you should go to war or fucking whatever, you know?
Exactly.
And so I just feel like one thing that if you learn anything about like cults, which I've read a little bit about because they're so fascinating, the main thing that anybody who's like an expert on cults and like cult deprogramming and the social dynamics of cult mentality, you know, they always are, the first thing they want everybody to recognize is that nobody is safe.
Right.
Everybody is susceptible to getting stuck in a cult. Everybody's susceptible of being tricked. You're not too smart. You know, it's just like there are ways that people know how to trick other people, and everybody falls for it.
Yeah, I had a friend, and we're talking, and then out of the blue, he says, "Elon Musk has reached out to me."
Oh my God!
And I was like,
"No, he didn't."
And then he said, and then he went on to say, obviously he's not using his entire real name, but it's Elon. And I didn't want to say like...
Oh, yeah. So he's like being secretive.
Oh, my God.
Because he's such a big celebrity. He doesn't want people to know he's talking to you.
Elon Musk isn't calling you, bro. You're getting... And here's what's interesting. It was like, I told him about that or whatever. I was like, you know, watch out. You know, I just... It's sad. It's sad to me that there's like, it's so easy to be manipulated and to be believed. And listen, I've gotten emails in where I've had to like, whoa, what's going on? Like I had to stop and think and had to go through the process because some of them, if they hook you the right way, right, with just the right like tone or cadence in a situation that's relevant or relatable to a situation that you're actually in, you're going to go through it. And it's happened to me a couple times. So, you know, so if you're sitting there, for example, extremely vulnerable and say they've got a cookie on your phone or in your computer and they can see you're doing searches for like how to become a millionaire or how to make contact with billionaires or, you know, like you might do searches like that because you're trying to start a business or you're trying to raise money for a movie or whatever it might be. And then, you know, so if somebody's cookied up on that and they're targeting you, all of a sudden they're showing up as Elon Musk because they're answering the questions that you've got already existing in your internet presence, whether it's your searches, you know, over the web or the fact that they've found a way to hack into your actual
That also
phone.
exploits a really common bias that people have where we're all susceptible they say, I'm phrasing it wrong, but they call it appeal to authority bias, I think.
Okay.
And that's why if somebody wants to gain access to your house, they'll show up in like a reflective vest and carry a clipboard with a hard hat or whatever. You know, like they'll claim that they're from the city and that all that they have to do is just wear one item of clothing or carry one thing like a, you know, badge or whatever that makes them look like an authority figure that is supposed to be where they're going, and that you should just step aside and let them do their job because they really don't have the time to bother with you.
Right.
You know, it's why people impersonate cops. It's why people like, you know, will put on they'll put on all kinds of different uniforms. I'm just saying, like, if you want somebody to think that you're an authority in like business or billionaire shit or like crypto or whatever, you'll be like, yeah, so I'm really close friends with Elon Musk. That's your proximity to authority that makes you an authority,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Like,
No.
they'll just lie about shit.
I have a Nigerian investor who blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's all that nonsense for sure. Oh, Katy Perry. I just hope they figure it all out. I didn't know they had kids, so that makes it sad. More sadder. But I'm surprised people care. I thought she completely fell from grace. And Orlando Bloom, has he been in anything? I guess he's in some like TV stuff, right? I think he does some TV.
I don't know what he's doing.
Alexander Skarsgård used to weep in the shower after bad auditions. He said in a quote, I just felt filthy in my soul. And it's so great because like in my book, I talk about this audition for Clueless that I blew and how it just crushed me. And like hearing a guy like, a guy as successful as Alexander Skarsgård, and the torment that you go through it's such a real thing. Like, I don't know.
He's also a Nepo baby too. So it's interesting that he's doing the thing that we hope all the Nepo babies do, which is to take his work extremely seriously and really try and be the greatest that he can be instead of just like riding on his dad's like
showing up at the set because he can.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. And, I mean, it's just another example. I just like that there's an example out there that tries to like explain a little bit or just expose a little bit at least the vulnerabilities that we have. Like I'm sick over my book. I'm sick over my film still. Like to this day, I'm sick over Don's Plum and people watching it. I get like, it stirs my stomach in ways you can't imagine. The amount of stress and anxiety I feel before like going to Amazon to look at my reviews on the book, I can't explain to you. I get like, I freeze. I sometimes have to ask you to do it because I'm just too nervous. Like if somebody sends me an email saying, oh, I just posted a great review of your book on Amazon, I'll go to Amazon to check it out. Oh my God, it's so stressful just going there. And I have an average of almost 4.5 stars. I have 130, almost 140 reviews or whatever it is. Things are going great in that department, but still I'm sick to my stomach. And here we have, a guy like Skarsgård talking about that. And in another headline, Amanda Seyfried candidly revealed that she auditioned 6 times for Wicked. And so, and it's so interesting that we're in this stage where like, it's just like that talent of her level is having to go through that kind of a process to get the job. You know what I mean? Like 6 auditions is a lot for somebody with a name as recognizable as Amanda Seyfried. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's an extraordinary artist. She's an extraordinary actor.
Did you see her on it was like a late night talk show. I think it was, I can't remember the dude's name.
Was she sipping coffee?
What?
Never mind.
She was playing, what is that instrument that they lay flat? It's not a guitar.
Steel guitar?
Is it a steel guitar or is it like a...
It'd be a steel guitar and then stuff like that.
Yeah, but I think it's like a little bit more like a harp.
It's a steel guitar.
Okay. Anyway, she was playing a steel guitar and she was covering... I can't think. I got fatigued. I don't know why.
Think, Angela.
Anyway, she's a brilliant singer and she plays it really amazingly.
Amanda Seyfried's a brilliant singer? Is that what you said?
Tony... Who is the artist that did the Blue album?
Blue, Joni Mitchell?
Yes. She covered Joni Mitchell and she was amazing, is what I meant to say. And I should have figured it out before I opened my mouth.
Somebody... a
Joni Mitchell song, yes.
Shanna said a Joni Mitchell song.
Shanice has been very helpful,
Shanice,
too.
Thank you.
She said that Miss Americana is the Taylor Swift documentary on Netflix. So I screenshotted that. Thank you, Shanice.
Yeah.
And also, Mildred said the man references Leo. You should watch the music video.
Oh, really?
Yes. Well, yeah, because she has that lyric where she's like Leo in Saint-Tropez or something like that. Remember?
Oh yeah. I don't really seek Leo very often.
She's saying like if she he gets to be on yachts with a bunch of babes and nobody criticizes him, but if she wants to have several boyfriends, it's like she's a bad person.
It's a big issue. Yeah, it's okay for him, but not okay for her, for women. This is the whole issue I have with Blake Lively and that whole Forbes thing in the first place. If that was a dude talking about how he went onto a set and worked his way into being more than just an actor, he'd be congratulated for it. They would talk about his ambition. They would talk about how they would all, and on the set, like whether it was the other producers or the studio, everybody would be like, man, this guy showed up and he showed us that he's way more than just an actor. And I truly believe that. I believe that Blake Lively, and I believe that because I've seen it. I've seen it in Hollywood. I've seen the eye rolls to women. And as soon as a woman steps forward being ambitious to like 5 bro producers in the room, she has no chance, bro. She has no chance. It's a fucked up world. Not to get emotional again.
P.T. Anderson began his career as a production assistant on television, films, music videos, and game shows in Los Angeles and New York City.
Yeah.
So there you go. Like, there's that guy.
Yeah, we all start somewhere. I taught at the University of Georgia, and I would have my students would come up to me and they would be like, how do I break in? What do I got to do? Like, I was teaching at Grady. I was teaching a modified course on IP development from a producer, director, and writing standpoint. And my students would be like, well, how do I, figure it out? And I'm like, you got to get on a set and you got to gravitate towards something. P.T. Anderson got on a set and he gravitated toward directing. A guy like Robert Evans, who, if you don't know who he is, he ran Paramount Studios during one of their golden ages, Godfather, Chinatown, movies like that. He was the boss. And he started out as an actor. And when he got on a set, he realized what he really wanted to be was a producer. So, this idea that Blake Lively was like acting inappropriately was all gender-based, in my opinion. All gender-based. And the idea that she was, by the way, in this Forbes thing saying, the interesting thing about her saying that she pulled the rug out, like, it's so interesting that the language she used is the same kind of language that you would hear from minorities who are like acquiescing to this society, the societal like travesty placed upon them. Do you know what I mean? Like I used to be amazed when I would like hear interviews of Black Americans back in the Jim Crow era when they would like be compliant with these outrageous things like whites only signs and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And where they would like make excuses for the reason for that to be there, that there's like a reason for it that's actually logical. Am I making any sense? Where people like, I don't know how to put it. I think there's actually a clinical.
I think that they were doing that because they were under threat constantly. I think that was why that ever happened.
So we have a birthday today.
We do?
Yeah.
Whose birthday?
This person's birthday is their 99th birthday, and they're very famous. Can you guess who it is?
Clint Eastwood.
Close. I think he's close to 99.
He's the first like super old celebrity I could think of.
It's not Dick Van Dyke because we know he's already celebrating his 100th, and he's not even 100 yet. He's 99. Celebrating his 99th birthday is Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks.
I know, and he's trying to make a movie.
He is, yes. They're
trying
making
to be in a movie.
Spaceballs.
Yes.
Yeah, they're making a Spaceballs sequel. He is going to play the Yoda character. What is that?
Yogurt.
Yogurt, yeah. He's playing Yogurt again, which is wonderful. Can you imagine being 99 years old and being totally cogent? And like that would give me a whole 40, I mean, that makes it depressing to say this, but 44 years. Only 44. 44 years. That would give me a whole 44 years. I could write a lot of books.
Yeah, it's like a whole do-over of your
That's
entire life.
like a whole fucking do-over, bro. Especially if you're like active. Like doing push-ups and stuff. Anyway, happy birthday, Mel Brooks. You've made me laugh 1,000 times. I think you'll make me laugh 1,000 more. And I hope that Spaceballs is every bit as funny as the OG. I love that movie.
I'm so glad he continues, but he's had so many people that he worked with and that he loves pass away. Like
almost everybody, except he's got to be like fearing his own children at this point.
I know.
It's like, God, I'm going to outlive my children, and it's not because they're going to die early. Scarlett Johansson, by the way, I don't know if you saw. Did you see the viral photo of her kissing?
How many more of these do you have?
I
keep trying to get you questions in the chat, but then
we'll get to them.
Keep going.
This will be my last one then. Scarlett Johansson, she explains this viral because you know what I'm talking about? Did you see this photo of her? She was holding a man's face at Cannes and kissing him on the lips quite suggestively.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's her co-star in the Jurassic movie.
Yep, that's right. Her co-star in the Jurassic movie.
She explained?
She explained her viral kiss with Jonathan Bailey is the actor. And she said, in a quote, "I've got a lot of love to give." And I just wondered how many people became immediately hopeful. In like Hollywood, they're like, "Oh, do you? Is that so?"
Does that mean I too could get a kiss from
I have a lot of
Scarlett
love to
Johansson?
receive. I am a love receiver. I was made to receive love. Miss Johansson, please.
I have a hard time picking on Scarlett Johansson because I know that she had such a rough time.
I'm not picking on her. I think it's a
She
wonderful.
had such a rough time, like being like a busty blonde in the public eye, you know.
Dude,
Like,
I went and saw
she's-
her first movie in the movie theaters, and I fell in love with her. She was a complete.
What was her first movie?
First movie, it was she was like a kid. She was like 11 years old, and she was a co-star with another girl. I have to remember the name of it. I'll try to get.
I remember seeing Ghost World a bunch of times.
No.
I
This
loved
is
that
before
one.
that. It was. She was
But that's when she was like still playing like a regular teenager, and she wasn't
Oh, it's gonna
like
drive me crazy.
like queen sex appeal.
Scarlett Johansson. So go to chats now while I look up this thing, this stat.
Oh, Nadine clarifies everything.
Oh, thank
Thanks,
you,
Nadine. She said, "Love Jonathan Bailey, and he's gay."
Oh, is he?
Yeah. Women just get to kiss gay men on the lips. It's like not.
He's
a thing.
gay?
Apparently.
That's the greatest.
I don't know anything about it, so I'm not. That's not coming from my mouth. I don't know these people.
It's so funny because she can kiss him like that, but if I kissed him like that, rumors abound. All right, let's see. I'm gonna tell you this movie because you should see it. This is like her first movie. Oh my God, it was so good. Gosh, she's worked so much. Manny and Lowe.
Manny and Lowe.
Manny and Lowe.
Yeah, Cosmic Urgency guessed it. I didn't know he was with us.
Yeah, he's here. What's up, Cosmic Urgency? It's
Said,
fine.
isn't
We're
it
probably
like
down
Sammy?
we're down to our core again, I think. mostly.
Cosmic Urgency said, "Isn't it like Sammy or Joe or something?" Yeah.
It's Manny and Lowe. It was wonderful. It was a great movie. It only gets a 6.6, but it was a great movie. Again, a 90s indie film. I absolutely loved it, and I immediately like just fell for her. Like it was just like, I was like, oh my God, I love her. As an actor, as a talent, she was a kid. Like it was nothing. It was nothing beyond just my admiration for her.
Can I ask you this question from the chat?
Yes, please.
Username Lures. It looks French. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
We disagree on the Lively case, but I'm intrigued by your story. What was your favorite thing about the 90s?
Oh, it was the independent movie scene was my favorite thing about the 90s by far. I just loved it, man. It was like so cool, especially to be in Hollywood during a time when people were being discovered constantly, when writers and directors and producers, where there was a democratization to the whole process ultimately, and we all suddenly felt like we were capable, that we could play at like the highest level and get a movie in a theater and in front of some folks, and so it was just a beautiful time. And I think the other thing that I loved most about the 90s was I think that it was second possibly only to the 70s for music. I just think across the board, whether it was hip hop or pop
90s
or
music
rock,
was so great.
we just had such an incredible time, and to be there and to be at these concerts and seeing this, like what is now today, these like amazing classics. It was cool to be there because I remember growing up in the 80s and looking back at the 70s, 60s, and 70s of like some of my favorite artists, Eric Clapton being one of them, but like, you could pick them all, whatever, and just wishing I could have been there. I love Janis Joplin, for example, and she passed when I was 10 years old, so there was no chance I could ever see her, and so I had this longing for the ability to see, or just have the opportunity to see artists of that kind of caliber, and I felt like we got that in the 90s.
Yeah, you went to Lollapalooza, right?
I went to Lollapalooza. I saw in that concert alone, I saw obviously the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was the second Lollapalooza, but I saw Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden, Ice Cube when he was like meaningful, and
But did Ministry play?
Ministry played.
That's so fucking cool.
Just awesome. It was like a ridiculous moment in my life,
Yeah.
Or even like in 1990, I think it was 1992 or 1993. It would have been right after 10, and Pearl Jam's 10. They toured with Neil Young, and so I went and saw Blind Melon, touring their debut album with Pearl Jam touring their second record, which hadn't even yet been released, Versus. So they were still big on 10, and it was fucking wild.
That's awesome.
And then, of course, topping it off with a legend, in Neil Young. So that's my 90s story. I love it. There's other things too. I liked being 20s. I liked being in my 20s. That was fun. I like thinking that the world was safe. I like believing that the American dream was alive. These are all things I loved about the 90s. I loved the idea that I could buy a house. There's so many things about the 90s that I miss. I still like some of the progress that we've seen. So much of it, in fact. Like, I've learned so much as a person. I've learned, like, as I've gotten older, I've always wanted to shed the things that I felt were a part of Don's Plum. What that movie's really all about is shedding a lot of what our parents put on us and their parents put on us, and so on and so forth, and becoming our own identity, while at the same time feeling and being as vulnerable as they were as they went through their passage into adulthood and the ownership of life and the world around them. And anyway, it's just all been quite a fascinating thing for me. Oh, that's cool. Ruth just showed up and said, good to see you. Good to see you were right about a lot and proved everyone wrong. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this stuff since January, since the filing, well, that's not even true, since the case broke. We've been on TikTok, I guess over a year or about a year now, because we've been on this app for 6 months.
I can't remember. I don't know time. Time doesn't know me, and I don't know time.
Either way, we've I'm going from experience too. I'm not just like some Johnny, sassy Dave Navarro guy who like just decided that I could point the fucking camera at myself and have an opinion about something. I'm from this world. I lived in it. I want to live in it. I want to continue to live in it. And I've also been subject to the dark side of this world. I've suffered through a ridiculous amount of abuse of power that included a huge, large, multi-million-dollar big Hollywood lawsuit with some of the same themes as this one. So it makes this story close. The story's close to home for me.
Guilty Angel has a good question.
Let's hear it.
Was Leo as straight edge as he appeared? I just don't buy that he didn't partake.
If you're talking about partaking in anything other than alcohol, then he did not. He was not during my... I only spent 2.5 years with him, so he's a 50-year-old guy. At the time, it was a substantial amount of time for his life, but no, sassy Dave Navarro, Cosmic Urgency is...
When I didn't know Zach Peters' name, he's like a TikToker. Zach Peter is like a gossip,
He's a Baldoni shill.
Yeah, so I didn't know his name, but he looks just like Dave Navarro, except he's really sassy. So I called him Sassy Dave Navarro.
Yeah. It's a great name, man. You should totally adopt it. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, man, the 90s were a good time. I really love the 90s. But again, I love a lot of what's happened here in the progress of the world. And obviously, so much is wrong. And we turned our backs on so many things that we should not have turned our backs on, whether it's the climate or, the political unrest that was clearly growing from, before Bush and, probably...
We can also idealize any time before Citizens United was overturned,
Yeah, it's easy to do,
it was,
you're right.
It was a little bit easier to think that your politicians were actually working for the people that elected them then.
Yeah.
They probably weren't, but it was easier to think that.
But we did see huge advancements culturally, forget about politically, culturally, we saw huge advancements for the LGBTQ community. And I think that those advancements were just so good for everybody. And we did see some political movement. We did see marriages becoming mostly legal, even despite, the resistance from people who had no fucking business in it anyway.
But that was in the 90s.
No, I'm saying now. I'm saying, from the 90s.
Oh,
I'm saying
since then,
the
right.
progress, I'm saying I miss and love the 90s, and there's so much that I can, but there are things that are happening now that I think we should all be glad about and we should be proud of and that we should continue to embrace and hopefully, graduate into better and broader, rights and abilities and all sorts of stuff. So, a lot of bad shit happened, but a lot of good stuff too. Delicate saying, Radiohead is my favorite, Janet Jackson 2, Green Day, Tupac, Aaliyah, and Weezer Oh, Weezer pisses me off. They'll always piss me off, man. Here's my Weezer story for you if you guys haven't heard it. When we were improvising, we had, for Don's Plum, we had a character that we called the Buddy Holly mechanic guy. And we put these Buddy Holly glasses on him. And if you saw the movie, he has this exchange with Leo and the rest of the cast. And it's like this, sort of tense exchange between them. And at the end of it, the guy gets pissed off and he marches out and kind of bitches at the table of our friends as he leaves. And then they sing this song. They sing the Buddy Holly song.
By Weezer.
And it's Leo singing it, so we're like, this shouldn't be a problem, right? Like, why would this be a problem? It's not. We're not actually looking at licensing the song itself. We're looking for the publishing because they're just singing it at this guy who's sitting at a table.
Yeah, and it's such a 90s song. Like, that was so super popular at that point in the 90s.
And it was such a cool moment because they sing the Buddy Holly song, and as they're singing the Buddy Holly song, things get out of control, and they start shaking the table, and it breaks up, and it's like this really great little act breaker in the movie. And so we finish up the movie. We send the cut to Rivers Cuomo through his agent, right? Because we're all connected. So send it right to Rivers Cuomo, and we're like, hey, we'll pay you whatever. We just want this. And Rivers Cuomo was like, fuck no, you can't have it. He took it away from us. And it wasn't even the song itself. We just wanted to let the cast just go. The cast is just singing like the chorus. That's it. They don't even sing a lyric.
So just a few years ago, Dale and I were watching TV, and we see this car commercial where the dad is driving, mom's in the passenger seat, there's kids in the back, and they all start singing the Buddy Holly song.
And I got so mad.
And I was like, oh, you give them clearance. Weezer gives clearance for car commercials, but not my movie.
Yeah, me and Rivers Cuomo, we got a beef, and he doesn't even know it.
Yeah, it's so funny.
But I got a beef with that dude. Every time I see him, I'm mad at him, and I love them. I think they're awesome. Like, honestly, I thought they were one of the coolest sounds in the 90s, 100%. Like, they just had this whole kind of, I don't know, they took a lot of familiar sounds and made a very unique one out of it. It was a great band. And fuck that guy. Any more questions that we should address before we close shop?
I thought Ruth was being really sweet on TikTok. You already read part of this, but I'm going to read the rest.
Okay.
Joined one of your lives when the Lively suit first dropped and saw all the hate you were getting. Good to see you were right about a lot. Proved everyone wrong.
Oh, I didn't even see that first part. That's so cool. I remember you, Ruth. I really do. That's so fun. See what I'm saying? Like, that was right all the way back, guys. Like, we date all the way back. I got to pull out some of the archives and we got to do like a super cut.
Like a super cut.
Yeah.
Like a big, like, you should put like a big banner with streamers and stuff, a graphic about we were right the whole time.
Yeah. And we were right about the Karen Reed trial. I mean, us and everybody else, but it's like, we were also right on other different levels. One of the things about Karen Reed that I can't get over is I believe so much that Higgins was the cause of that man's passing. I still believe it to this day. It's going to be very interesting. I'm going to watch that civil trial for sure. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's televised, but if it is, I'm all over it. Like, white on rise.
Civil trial is a little bit sad because it's his family who still thinks that she's responsible, which is just super awful for them and their progress through grief,
Maureen is asking, what do I think about Spotify and the future musicians having a place to publish music? Well, I mean, I love where all of that's going. I know that musicians have to keep fighting for their royalties, just like all artists do. The book behind me is a book that it would sell for $25 if it sells for $24 right now. I make $6 as a self-publisher, and I'm making about 3 times more than I would make if it was being traditionally published. So artists really get screwed when it comes to actually making money off of their work. It's such a weird thing to see that a $24 retail ends up in $2, $3 to the author who toiled for years in some cases to make that art come to reality, and then some publisher and printer and combination thereof, they just sit and just instantly make money. They don't fucking shows up at their door. They just make money at it. So this is also true for, other platforms like Spotify and so on for musicians and streamers, and that's why unions are important. And so I just hope that musicians and all artists will have an opportunity to be represented in a way that protects not only their work, but the way in which they can participate. I, for example, have to fight for my right to be able to just screen my own damn fucking movie. I had a guy ready to promote my movie in Atlanta on a big screen, Don's Plum, and we were ready to go. And what happened? The owner freaked out because he was scared that Leo would come and sue him. So anything that helps the artists get their work in front of others, I'm for. And sometimes, unfortunately, that comes at the sacrifice of some of the dollars. But somebody's going to take the money anyway. So let's just hope. Let's just give artists, their best chance at, putting their voice out, I guess is the way I see that. I am so thrilled to have spent this evening with you guys. We had a great night. We had a record night over at YouTube. We got the Baldoni files to show up, and they were ready to rip me a fucking new butthole. And so they showed up in droves, and that was really nice. And it was really great to be back on TikTok. So some old folks come back, Ruth and so on, and of course our regulars. So thank you guys all. I think today is Thursday. Is that right?
Yep.
So we will be back again tomorrow, and then we get the weekend off. But I hope tomorrow will bring us lots of news, including maybe a verdict in the Diddy trial.
Ooh, maybe.
See you tomorrow, Angela. I'm going to see you in a couple of minutes, actually. But good night from the live.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.